Alright, let me just go ahead and confirm that everything is working properly, and once that is set up, we will go ahead and start with the stream. Does not seem to be working again. Lovely. Need some water, one sec. Alrighty, there we go. Now it's working. Let me just make sure the chat is being properly set up. Yep, I can indeed see the chat now. And there we go. Everything seems to be working. Chat appears to be finally showing up properly. Close enough to properly. For some reason, the subscriber count is completely wrong, but it's fine. Ah, there we go. Perfect. So it looks like everything is indeed working as expected. I'm not getting any double side on the audio. There we go. And everybody seems to be here. So, first of all, thank you guys for coming. This has been quite an interesting day, to say the least. When I put my video regarding the Zhongli Buffs, I was not expecting to get any information for months. The buffs are not coming until 1.3, which is expected to be on February. So I was not expecting this quick of a response for the state of Zhongli. So when I woke up, I had no idea that I should check on the internet to see for buffs. It wasn't until much later that I managed to find out thanks to the comments. But yeah, we have a lot to talk about in regards to the upcoming buffs for not only Zhongli, but also the Geo element as a whole. And just because I have to get this out of the way, I am extremely excited about these changes. That is just something that I have to say right now. But even with that, I do have to remain as neutral as possible so as to not let the excitement blind my judgment. However, I did go ahead and do a bit of number crunching with regards to the numbers that we were given, and oh boy, are we ready for something good. So, to start the discussion, we're going to be talking mostly about Zhongli, and then we're going to be shifting over to the more general Geo buffs in all around, and see which characters are going to benefit from it. Realistically, every single Geo character is going to benefit so much from this change, it's not even funny. A lot of characters that I already considered very, very powerful have just become even more so, to the point where they're honestly going to be monsters. But, with that out of the way, let's start with the first topic of discussion, that being Zhongli. Now, let me go ahead and pull up the numbers that were given for the Zhongli buffs. In general, the buffs are very simple, and they are essentially here to make Zhongli into a proper DPS character. A lot of the buffs that are being targeted directly towards Zhongli have this effect in mind, while the buffs that are more targeted towards the Geo element as a whole have the effect of not only upping his potential as a Geo character, but upping the potential of every other character in the process. So, let's see. Genshin Impact to all travelers regarding adjustments to Zhongli. This is the official wording for the Zhongli buffs. The current adjustments, they're not final. They can change, so we have to keep this in mind. I don't expect them to change for the negative, however, so I do find it that it is it's safe enough to use these numbers for most of our math, since MiHoYo has already released them themselves, so they're feeling very confident that the numbers are going to gravitate towards this area. So with that in mind, let's cut to the chase. Buffs. What happened to Zhongli? He got HP scaling on not only his normal charge attack, plunge attacks, he also got HP scaling on his resonant damage of the pillar, and he got some pretty powerful changes to his shield. Starting with probably the most impactful change out of the bunch, that being adding HP scaling to a normal attack character. I cannot stress enough how powerful buffs like this are. We've already seen what a buff like the Crescent Pike can accomplish on very specific characters that can take advantage of it. HP scaling on normal attacks is significantly more powerful than the Crescent Pike buff. The fact that Zhongli can stack both of these buffs together already make him an insane character. We're talking crazy numbers. I'm talking Razer levels of crazy. But before we get into that, we have to go ahead and look at the proper value as a whole. The HP scaling that's currently being given to us is that his normal, charge attack, and plunge attack damage will be increased by 1.39% of his maximum HP. And now, I know, that sounds low. And in reality, it is a bit low. But the way that it interacts with his normal attacks changes that entirely. You see, Zhongli as a character already has some of the highest HP scaling that you can get in the game. At max levels, no artifacts equipped, he already has 14k HP. A little bit more, but we'll simplify the numbers. 1% of that is being turned into attack power. And you gotta think about it. It's not proper attack. He's not getting that as attack. He's getting that as scaling. That means that every single hit of the chain, including the ones that hit multiple times, will get the same damage bonus over and over again. There is no requirement for this. He just has it. You don't have to get energy orbs, you don't have to cast a shield, you don't have to use the burst. He just has it. It looks low. Trust me, it looks low. But when you actually look at the numbers, it is not low in the slightest. For an attack character, let's just say that we have a regular attack character. For somebody to get the same amount of scaling that Zhongli is getting from this passive effect, they have to have a really high amount of attack power. I'm talking like 500 attack power for a regular character. Now, this does change a lot, bearing on the scaling of the character, if they're a great sword user and all of that. So the numbers do get very, very complex. There are a lot of moving factors and a lot of moving systems that influence this design very heavily. However, the way that miHoYo did it is honestly a very elegant change that fixes a lot of problems without touching the kid too directly. To put it simple, just from the base scaling alone, just from 14k, let's set the flower just to make the numbers a little bit easier to digest. You have a Zhongli with a legendary flower at max level, and just that, no other HP investment. He's already hitting somewhere around 20k health. So now we have to consider that. 20k health, 1.39%. That's usually around like 370-ish power or attack that he's getting, somewhere around that mark. Somewhere around there. We'll go with that. Let's just call it 300 for ease of numbers. This 300 power that he's getting is being applied to every single one of his attacks. Might I remind you, the 5th chain of his attack hits multiple times, and every single one of those is getting this 300 power. This is one of the reasons why the Crescent Pike is so powerful on it. And this type of damage bonus is even stronger, because it is being added directly to the damage. This means that it will scale with further multipliers even higher than what the Crescent Pike already has. The Crescent Pike doesn't scale with damage bonuses. It doesn't scale with normal damage bonuses. It scales with physical damage bonuses, but it doesn't scale with normal attack changes. It doesn't scale with other stacking effects. This does, and that is massive. You gotta think about all the multipliers that you can apply into this small attack percentage, and just how low investment it is. Because just at base, not doing anything, just leveling up the character, you're already getting almost as much power as you would from having a maxed out legendary feather. They've already showed it. In the I went ahead and I looked at the video that they did multiple times, Kawa, to make sure that it did actually work, and it does indeed work. This type of damage bonus is being applied to every single part of the kit. It's not being excluded anywhere, and it amounts to a lot. It's not a small number when you actually look at it, because it's being added in the multiplicative phase, basically before all the buffs get applied. It scales up really, really highly. It's, as I've said, it's essentially like having two feathers on a single character. It turns your flower into an extra feather. He is getting so much power that other characters just don't have. Let's see, Amar, do you think they will lower the 1.39? If I'm being completely honest, I feel like the 1.39 is already their low value. I don't feel like they would put a high value with the expectations they would have to nerf it. They're probably giving us somewhere on the lower end of what they're expecting for in the final patch. Because we gotta think about it this way. If they tell us 1.39 and then when the patch actually hits, we only get like half of that, let's say. The amount of backlash they're gonna get on that is way too high. Any rational person would give the community the lowest value that they consider acceptable, and then go from there. So I don't expect them to nerf the value too much. We might see a couple changes for the positive, or slight changes to the negative, but I think the power that we have been giving so far is more than acceptable, and in fact something that's properly needed. The character has horrendous, and I mean horrendous, normal attack scaling without this buff. It's so much to the point that the scaling isn't even a factor to consider when actually looking at his damage, because his damage does not come from that. It almost entirely comes from the Crescent Pike in the current iteration. Now that changes though. That changes quite massively. Now, he will probably have lower DPS than Klee or other DPS characters that are considered meta. I do, however, think that in terms of physical DPS, only physical, not counting elemental prowess or anything of the matter, Zhongli might actually be the strongest one. And it's kind of hard to tell at this point in time because we still have to take a look at a lot of numbers. Razor does insane damage by himself, but having this type of scaling that can stack with a Crescent Pike, that can stack with physical damage, that can stack with crits, that can stack with other buffs that you get like the Geo Resonance, that can stack with Superconduct. We're talking like 5 multipliers that can be applied to this. That can end up being a lot of damage. Am I pulling for Zhongli? Oh my god, you have no idea how difficult a decision that is. I want Zhongli bad. I really want Zhongli. I was very disappointed when I pulled for Tartaglia and I ended up getting a Tartaglia. Twice, because fate likes screwing with me. I'm honestly gonna have to think very hard about this one, because when it comes to Zhongli, he is definitely one of the best DPS characters that we're gonna have now that we can see the changes that we have in the horizon. Even when we had the beta changes, just the beta state, I already considered him incredibly powerful. Now with all the changes that we have, that are probably gonna end up becoming true, I don't see him going lower. I think he might legitimately become an S+ character. Would I roll for it, or would I recommend other people to roll for him? That is a different situation, however. Because while Zhongli looks to be incredibly strong in the buffed iteration, there are other characters that will be able to accomplish what he can, and also bring other things to the table. The primary reason why you would want Zhongli is for his defensive and offensive capabilities, not exclusively because of offense. Because in terms of offense, there will be characters that will equate him, and there will be characters who will surpass him. His new defense? My god, just wait until I talk about the shield. It looks like a minor change, but when you actually look at all the numbers, this shield is basically giving characters an extra life. It's gonna be to the point that if your shield breaks, that doesn't mean that the shield is weak, that means that you just took enough damage for your character to die. But we'll talk about that one in a bit. I still have to talk a lot about HP scaling, specifically with what type of investment is going to be better. Alright, so HP scaling. HP scaling, this is the first time that we've ever gotten this type of buff on a character that specifies normal attacks. We've gotten HP scaling in other areas before, elemental skills like that of Baido have a little bit of it. Zhongli himself had a bit of HP scaling on the burst before the changes. The best way for me to equate these changes are to one of the smartest ways to get free damage without changing much. Geo is looking incredibly amazing, by the way. We're gonna get to that though. I want to focus on the HP scaling right now. HP is a stat that every single character has. It is usually that that's being displaced as health. If this goes lower, you're dead. Zhongli is now one of the few characters that can weaponize his HP scaling. This means that he's getting an additional buff that no other character can get that multiplies itself with other scalings. Now, does this make it enough for you to focus on HP? The answer to that is no. Not in the slightest. It is not something that you want to focus on. HP as a stat is still probably the weakest stat in the entire game. Weaker than defense, weaker than everything else. It is by far the weakest stat. Even with this type of scaling, the numbers would have to be almost double for that to replace attack power. So no. You are not going to focus on HP. Not in this state. Probably never. The only reason why you would focus on HP would be characters that have incredibly high potential with that ability. And while Zhongli does have it, most of that potential is front-loaded. A majority of the damage that you're getting from HP scaling already comes from the base kit. Sorry about that. Already comes from the base kit. If you think about it this way, for you to double the damage that you're getting from HP scaling, you would effectively have to double your HP. And for you to do that, the HP scaling substat on artifact sets is the same. It's the same percentage as attack power. But HP scaling is not valued as that high. From my numbers, one attack point is equivalent to 70, I believe it was 72 or 77, I don't remember exactly, but it was somewhere around that benchmark. So one attack point is equivalent to 77 HP. Compare this to the substats that we get on artifact sets, and you'll begin to see why focusing on HP is going to be really bad. Think about the subsets for HP. The regular subset for HP gives you like 200 HP. So we're getting somewhere around 2.7 power. The regular substat for attack power gives you a minimum of 12. So, for HP scaling to be on the same level as attack percentage, it almost has to double. And that's just not happening in the current state. As far as HP scaling is concerned, do not bother with it. You get more than enough just from base scaling alone and the flower. If you get it, it's not a bad thing. It still helps quite a bit, especially with regards to the shield. It's just not efficient and not something that you want to focus on. What you want to focus on is you definitely want to focus on his attack power as a whole. And depending on the constellations that you have, you might be able to focus him on different support possibilities. His support possibility actually exists now, which is something that's weird to say, but it is true. So yeah. With regards to whether you focus HP or you focus attack, if you're DPS, you're focusing attack 100% of the time. There is no question about it. Attack percentage is just way too powerful in terms of scaling for you to replace that with HP. And attack percentage is not even that powerful. There are things that are even crazier, like crit rate or physical damage bonuses. Or elemental damage for that matter. Depends on what you're doing. Does that make the change bad? No, not in the slightest. This change is absolutely amazing. It is, by itself, almost tripling his damage. This is not hyperbole. It is tripling his damage. Vortex Vanquisher. It can actually work now. It can be a legitimate option. Now, whether you would you choose the Vortex Vanquisher over the Crescent Pike? You have to decide that for yourself. If your Crescent Pike is max refined, no, never. You're not going for that. Unless you really want the defensive capabilities of the Vortex Vanquisher, because the Vortex Vanquisher also increases shield potential, and his shields are now way, way stronger. So it is something that you can do, and it is a valuable option now. It used to be... It wasn't viable before. But now it's good. It's really good. I still consider the Crescent Pike to be better when at max refinement, but if you only have it like at refinement 3 or maybe even 4 at this point, I would have to do the numbers. It's a competition, and it's something that Zhongli didn't have before. So yeah, you can use Vortex Vanquisher, and you will get benefits from it. Crescent Pike will probably still do more damage, but if I had the option, I would choose the Vortex Vanquisher, because I value his shield power way more now. Then the Jade Spear. See, that's very difficult, because the Jade Spear also gives crit rate, and the crit rate can affect other things as well. The spears that we have are all really, really good. So it becomes a lot harder to decide for Zhongli, which is a good thing. This is what we want from characters. To have multiple options, to have multiple things that we can build on them. So I'm surprisingly happy with the change. Skyward Spine, yeah, Skyward Spine's amazing. One of the things that makes these type of changes so powerful, specifically for characters like Zhongli, is because they already have very fast-hitting attack chains. So increasing that even further makes it even more powerful. And the Skyward Spine, it's a very big percentage. I believe it was like what, 12% or something like that. It's a good attack buff. Deathmatch becomes more relevant, but if you're comparing 4 stars, 4 stars are always going to be the Crescent Pike. There is not a single 4-star spear, at least not for Zhongli, that outmatches the Crescent Pike. Now, when we're talking about 5 stars, that changes drastically. Essentially, 4-star characters use Crescent Pike. If you have 5 stars, any of them are probably going to be better until your Crescent Pike becomes max refinement. So yeah, I'm going out of track completely just because I'm very excited for these changes. I apologize. One of the things that we have to take into account is that this type of buff the HP percent buff, it just comes at base. You don't have to invest into it. You just get it. It's crazy. It's crazy that you just get it. I didn't think they would do something like this, and I'm happy that they did. It's a very elegant change. Adding HP scaling to something essentially means that the floor of that skill will always be really, really high, just because of the way that HP by itself works. You get a lot of it very early on, and it's hard to not get it, basically. The flowers give you like 6,000 whenever it's on max rank, and a lot of base characters at the very minimum get to like 9,000 HP, and that's on the low end. There's characters that get significantly higher, like that of Zhongli, which has 14k. Investing into HP percentage as your main stat is definitely not the way to go, but it is not the worst thing if you already have a stat like that. It is now comparable to energy recharge on him, which is weird because energy recharge is very powerful. So, continuing. We're only talking about his normal attacks yet, and there's still like another 3 things that got this form of interaction. His normal attacks are definitely the one that are gonna feel it the most, just because of the amount that he can provide with such a short period of time. If we think about it this way, just the base Zhongli with absolutely no investment is already dealing an extra 300 damage per hit. He hits like 7 times in a combo. Way more than that, in all honesty. He hits like, what, 9 times? I can't remember from the top of my head, but yeah. He hits like 9 times within the span of 2 seconds. So every 2 seconds, he's essentially getting 2,700 extra damage without taking into account crits, without taking into account damage bonuses, without taking into account other buffs that can be applied, like that of the Bolite set or the Vortex Vanquisher. My god, this character went from probably one of the most mediocre releases that we've had, probably one of the craziest characters that we have available. I'm legitimately considering spending my non-pity resources that are very limited at the moment to try to get Zhongli. I'm considering it, and I don't even have characters that would properly work with him. I mean, the Geo Traveler, that's kind of one of the biggest things, and I already have her fairly. Man, if I keep on talking, I'm gonna go into Genshin and just roll for him. This character is good. This character is now really, really good. Let's see. Would you go Geo HP percentage, Geo damage, crit rate? No. If you're going DPS, you 100% go attack percentage, physical damage, and then crit rate. Crit rate will DPS everything else. The reason for this is because investing into HP percentage, plain and simple, the HP percent that you get does not equate the attack percentage that you get. Can you do it? Yes. It wouldn't be the most effective, and the only thing that you would gain out of it would probably be like 700 extra shield in comparison to extra damage on every single one of your abilities. I consider the extra damage to be more valuable because when it comes to increasing the power of shields, we already have other options that are significantly better that will get you much, much higher results. Darius, I'm probably not gonna roll on him, if I'm being honest. I just simply don't have the resources for it. Monetary or otherwise. But I do have a friend that actually rolled it, and he's having a blast with Zhongli. He already has him fairly high up. So when the buffs come up, he's gonna let me borrow his account, and I'll do live hands-on reactions with Zhongli. Don't worry about that one. There is so much stuff to talk about. It's gonna be pretty hard to get this stream under an hour. I've already been talking like half an hour, and I haven't even gone from point 1. There is so much things to talk about. Before I get too distracted, HP scaling. Is it good? Yes. It is a lot of free damage. It works in the very similar way to that of the Crescent Pike, and it can stack with every other part of the kit to managed the end result of damage to be incredibly high. It is very, very high damage. It's getting to the point where he can compete with Razor to a realistic amount. And Razor is already so far ahead of every other damage option, on the physical department at least, that comparison alone is incredible. Now, let's talk about the rest of the kit. Once we talk about the rest of the kit, I'll go ahead and we'll have a proper discussion whether we should roll for him or not, as well as why I would recommend that you do, or why I would recommend that you don't. Because while Zhongli is very strong, there are other options that are also as strong, and there are upcoming options that could fit your team better. But we're going to talk about that in a second. For now, let's go ahead and talk about the rest of the kit. The normal attacks weren't the only thing to get this type of buff. Charge attacks also got it, plunge attacks also got it. Plunge attacks, let's be honest, unless you're Xiao, you don't really care about them. Maybe Albedo, but that's a discussion for another time. Charge attacks, on the other hand, the buff does not work that well with the charge attack variant, but it is still a buff, nonetheless, and it will increase its power by a significant amount. You gotta remember that the thing that makes this buff powerful is that he can hit multiple times within a short amount of time. Within 2 seconds, he can hit like 9 times, so he applies the buff 9 times. It's a lot of damage. For the charge attack, you're barely gonna feel it if I'm being honest, but it will overall affect the damage, just not as much as the normal attack. Now, his abilities also got HP scaling. Not only the Stone Steel in both forms, but also the Geo Shield, if I remember correctly. Let me look at that again. Stone Steel, resonance and holding damage of Dominus Lapidus will be increased by 1.9% of the max HP. This is even stronger than the other one. It is like 1.5 extra, which amounts to way more attack power than what you would normally get. This by itself is pretty much tripling the damage of the Stone Steel. This is not even hyperbole, it is flat out tripling the damage. Probably even quadruple in certain scenarios. I was not expecting they would buff this ability by any means. This ability has some of the highest potential in the entire game. For people that don't know why, the main reason is because while under normal circumstances, you can only get like 3 pulses at a time because you can only have 3 Geo Constructs. There's actually ways to get more. Not only by fighting enemies that can create their own Geo Constructs, that's like the most obvious one, but characters like the Geo Traveler, their burst creates geostructures, and those geostructures don't count toward the limit. I believe in my analysis I did manage to show the Geo Traveler bursting, putting 2 over pillars, and then Zhongli being able to resonate with all of them. That was 7 pulses. 7 pulses that are now at triple the damage than what we currently have. At that point in time, I was looking at like 280% scaling every 2 seconds. Realistically, more like 400. 200, my bad. Now, that's looking like a burst every 2 seconds. If you get this combo together, you're bursting every 2 seconds. This is powerful. The potential of this character was already extremely high. Now that these changes are the way that they are, that potential goes even higher. Just the Geo Traveler alone can make him pretty much have a 2-second burst with his Stone Resonance. If we get other characters that can do that, and they can stack together, this character can break the game. Which is one of the reasons why I did not expect that they would buff this, in all honesty. But that potential is now active. Zhongli now has the potential to be the highest damage character in the entire game. Will that actually happen? Probably not, let's be realistic. But the potential still exists. Now that was one of the changes for the damage. The damage has significantly increased. Even at the lowest value, you will now get proper numbers that you can expect from an ability. Even by itself, it is doing a lot more damage now. if you start creating resonant damage, especially if you're using the Geo Traveler, the damage will scale out of control. It's very, very good. Now, here's probably one of the more interesting changes, and probably one that's gonna bring us to the next topic of discussion eventually, but his shield also got touched. They also increased the damage. For the shield, it's not as relevant. Again, the reason why this damage increase is relevant is because he can hit multiple times within short periods of time. That's one of the reasons why the damage is good. For the shield, you can only cast it like 12 seconds, so it's not going to matter too much for the shield. But when you cast the shield, you also cast the pillar now. That's crazy. I was not expecting that to happen. The energy generation of the pillar did not get touched in the slightest. That is something that I do have to mention. The energy generation is still very, very inconsistent. It's usually enough for you to keep your Crescent Pike passive active a majority of the time, especially when you're doing switch rotations properly. That doesn't really matter too much. It's just an extra at the end of the day. I was never expecting abilities like this to be energy powerhouses. Just because the potential exists, it's more likely going to get nerfed. He's not an energy battery. That's not going to happen. But he is consistent damage. And one of the things that's probably more consistent is that of the Crystallize reaction, which I gotta talk about, because a lot of people think Crystallize is bad. Crystallize is probably at the most overpowered state that it has been in a long time. And it was already very powerful. Tony, I believe that is exactly what happened. I've said it multiple times. I feel like when they were testing him originally, one of the testers probably did exactly what I did and broke the character entirely with different numbers. To the point that they just had to nerf him. Because, again, this character is busted. There's multiple interactions that can break this character to the point where he can probably become the best character in the game on this flip of a switch. And we're probably going to see something similar to that when the buffs come up. That is very important. Nut. You only spawn a pillar if there's room for more. Which means that it is important to keep in mind that pillage management is still going to be a very important part of the kit. But the fact that you can spawn the pillar means that you can start your fights with the shield. That means that at every point in time, you will have the shield active. Again, the shield duration is like 20 seconds. And with the new changes, the shield health, it pretty much tripled. I'll get to the numbers in a sec, but the shield health pretty much tripled. And it was already one of the highest shields in the game. So, even if it does not have any utility, which now it does have utility, we'll talk about that. This ridiculous amount of health definitely becomes the utility now. Before, it was only like 2,000 to 3,000 higher than other shields. Now it's like 15k higher. It's a massive buff. Oh boy. So yeah. The shield is very strong. The shield is very, very strong now. It was already strong before, and it already had the potential to be incredibly overwhelming. Now, the floor has been raised so much that people will really, really feel it. We'll talk about that in a sec when we talk more about shields. I want to get the buffs out of the way, and then we'll talk about a lot of the new interactions and everything that we can do with the new iteration of Zhongli, as well as other Geo characters. That's some of the big changes that have occurred. He now spawns Pillar. Pillar is very strong now. Very powerful ability overall. It still generates energy. Not in a consistent rate, but enough to where it's worth using. It's worth using for other reasons, but it's enough to the point where you can keep a lot of your buffs active. And as far as the last changes, these were not changes directly towards Zhongli. They were done to Geo in general. So that means that every Geo character gets this. They changed the way that Geo shields work, so that now, instead of only having a shield increase when fighting Geo enemies, which before this were only like 3, out of which 2 were relevant, but one of them was a boss. So, a very limited pool. Every single element in the game can now be effectively protected by Geo. This includes physical damage. The way they changed the ability was that they gave Geo a shield absorption of 150% to every damage type in the game. That does not sound like much. I understand that. And for a lot of characters, it really isn't much. It is a small buff, but it is a significant one nonetheless. Zhongli, however, his numbers on the shield were so incredibly high already, that his shield was already considered very good, despite never getting the shield bonuses. Now that he gets shield bonuses on everything, this shield is massive. It is more than massive. Let me just put it this way. A Diona with no base scaling for health whatsoever. She sits at around like 9,000 health. Zhongli's shield can get to 18k with no problem. For every single damage type in the game. By the time that you break a Zhongli shield, you would have killed 2 Dionas in the process. The shield scaling can become ridiculously high in every single scenario. So this shield, before, it didn't provide enough for it to be just the shield. Now, the just the shield has become like 2 extra lives. That's how powerful the extra shield has now become. Good change overall. Really, really good change overall. Zhongli is not the only one that benefits from this. Noel also benefits from this. We'll talk about that later. But in addition, yes, there's more. They also changed the elemental resonance for Geo. The Geo elemental resonance was already very high. 50% extra damage is not something to sneeze at. The biggest problem with the resonance was that the characters that enabled it didn't fit into a lot of categories. Geo for the longest time has been missing a reliable main DPS. Ningguang exists, but there's a lot of complications with that. Noel also exists, again, a lot of complications with that. There was one build that worked properly. Check my Apocalypse team video if you want to take a look at that. We'll talk about that one later as well. But essentially, Geo got another buff to the elemental resonance. Whenever you have a shield, any kind, crystallized, ability generated, however you get the shield, it doesn't matter. If you have the Geo resonance and you do damage to an enemy, again, any form, ability, normal attack, whatever, that enemy has their Geo resistance reduced by 20%. One of the important things to note about Geo resistance or resistance in general, is that whenever the number goes into the negative, if an enemy does not have any Geo resistance, that negative number becomes attack percentage, or attack damage bonus. The important part about this attack damage bonus is that it scales, and it multiplies itself with the regular Geo damage bonus. So it becomes an additional modifier. And for people that know a lot about the math of Genshin, you know that stacking multipliers is the way that you get 1,000,000 damage with Mona. So having more multipliers to stack on top, just on a consistent basis, will increase the damage of a lot of Geo characters. Geo is becoming very, very strong, very, very sharp, very, very quickly. And, well, we're not to the point where you can run a full Geo team. It's starting to look more appetizing. It already had a lot of benefits before. Elemental shields are going to destroy you, do not try it. It's certainly fun though. Against bosses, I could recommend it. Those are the changes we are getting in 1.3. The expected release date for this is mid-February. It's gonna take a while. We're not gonna get this immediately. But it is something to take a look in. So now that that is out of the way, let's talk Zhongli and how this affects Zhongli, his builds, and everything in between. I've already talked a little bit about it, but I wanna ask the chat what they want to hear first. Do you want to hear Zhongli builds? Do you want to hear Zhongli flexibility? Do you want to hear Zhongli numbers? I'll go ahead and wait, and I'll also take a look at the comments that I've missed in the meantime. So you guys go ahead and comment. Alright, let's see. We got numbers, flexibility, build, shield, numbers. Alright, so it looks like starting from the least to the most, that's kinda hard. Everything changed so high that everything got super impacted by it. It's very hard to see what got the most impacted. From what it looks like numbers appear to be the number one category that a lot of people are interested in. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go with numbers. Now, I don't have exact values here. I did a lot of my math very, very quickly. But even just with very quick sketches, it's very apparent for anybody that knows math that these changes are going to become very, very powerful. Even without specific numbers, these changes are insane. I'm going to start with DPS numbers, because those are probably one of the ones that people are more interested in. When it comes to this normal attacks, the way that the normal attack now scales, it scales a certain percentage scaling with attack power, and it scales a certain percentage with HP. One of the reasons why the HP scaling is very, very powerful for Zhongli in particular, is because his base numbers for his HP are already very high. At a max level, no artifacts, no nothing, no buffs, he sits at 14k. So if we go ahead and let's go ahead and grab our calculator. Oh, my calculator broke. Great. PC calculator. We'll go with that one. So let's go ahead and let's just take base numbers, shall we? 14k. We have 14k HP. His normal attack scaling scales 1.39. So that means that just from the base HP, no flower, no artifacts, we'll add that later. Multiply this by 0.0139. Just from the base alone, we're getting 194.6 extra damage on every normal attack. Keep in mind that Zhongli is a character that can hit 9 times with his normal attacks within a span of 2 seconds. Now, these are not exact values. His scaling is slightly higher. We can safely round up to 200. That'll be more realistic. So we can just go with those numbers instead. Gene does bring a lot of things. We'll talk about that later. A lot of people don't really understand how the gene cleanse works, and it is very powerful, don't get me wrong. So we'll talk about that. Just from normal scaling alone, you're getting about 200 extra damage. This is important, extra damage on your basic attacks. For you to get this bonus with attack power, if we take a look at his scaling, we're gonna use the level 5 scaling because that's what most people will realistically be at. We can use level 6 instead if that's more realistic as well. Alrighty, so characters, Zhongli. normal attack scaling. Just 1 second, I'm pulling up the numbers. Alright, so at level 4, we're going to go only with the first hit for now, and we'll go as to why this becomes crazier later on. In the first normal attack hit, we're going to round up numbers just to make the math a little bit easier for people. We're getting 45% of our attack power is being converted to attack damage. So in order for us to get 200 power, we essentially need right about 400 attack power. That's fairly achievable, but keep in consideration that it is after a certain point, it becomes very difficult to get more attack power. About 400 attack power, that's not even a fully legendary feather. A full legendary feather doesn't even get you the attack power that you're getting from Zhongli existing. That's an entire artifact slot with, I don't know, like 1 million more investment that's not even getting you what Zhongli's getting for free right now. Now, that changes quite a bit when we start adding the attack that you get from weapons. Again, there's a lot of things to take into consideration when considering DPS. But even on that regard, the attack power that Zhongli is getting from his passive alone is equivalent to the attack power that a legendary weapon gives you at level 80. Let that sink in for a second. He basically has 2 weapons equipped. It's crazy. It's crazy. When we actually keep on looking at that, that's just from base. One of the things about this buff is that it applies to every part of the kit, regardless of scaling. When we talk about scaling of attack power, scaling is everything for attack power to be good. This type of buff, the thing that's the most important is attack speed. And Zhongli has some of the highest attack speed possible in the game, and he has multiple ways of increasing that. There are buffs like that Zhongli can provide. Probably wouldn't recommend it. We'll talk about that. There's buffs like that of the Skyward Spike, and I expect that we're going to be getting more attack speed buffs in the future. The more attack speed that you have on Zhongli, the better the character will become. So that is something to keep in mind. Even right now, he's already getting massive bonuses from this. To get an additional 1,800 power, again, this is without multipliers. Once we add multipliers, this becomes even crazier. From attack power alone, what is that, like 4,000 attack power? Just to get about 4,000 attack power just to get this buff in damage. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Now, 4,000 attack power would be significantly better because that again applies to a lot of the parts, and even if they are lower scaling at certain points, it would become higher. But if we're talking a single hit, it would require that much. It's ridiculous. This is crazy. This is one of the reasons why the Crescent Pike is so good. And the way the Crescent Pike works, it doesn't add the damage to the base number. It adds it as a separate entity. So it doesn't get affected by a lot of multipliers. This doesn't. This just gets added to the damage. So once this becomes added to damage, we're now combining the power that we're getting from HP, we're combining the power that we're getting from attack power. Then we're multiplying that power by the bonuses that we get from physical damage, plus the bonuses that we get from crit rate. We have multiple multipliers in this scenario. That's not even adding bonuses like the Geo Resonance, which you'll most certainly have when you're playing Zhongli. And even further things like defense reduction or damage increase with a character like Xing Yan, you can stack it really high. In addition to this, you can still have the Crescent Pike. They didn't get rid of the Crescent Pike, they just added another one to the kit. I can keep on talking about this for forever, and the same result will always happen. This buff is crazy. No investment whatsoever, you are getting so much out of it. No matter how you compare it, you are getting so much out of the buff, just from existing. You don't even have to invest into it. This is the number from just leveling up the character, by the way. We haven't added the flower, which gives another 6,000 HP when at max. That's like another 50% extra damage bonus to the value that I'm already giving you. If you get HP substats that give percentage, that could even go even higher. I wouldn't recommend that because attack scaling will still outscale it. But the benefit of this buff is that it is so incredibly high without needing to invest into it. Which means that you can invest into other things while still getting the benefit. It's not an and or thing, it's just you get it and you get it. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at the chat, and we'll see. What do you think about Zhongli with the buff plus a new Dragonspine Spear and Chongyun as support with his E? I was actually thinking about this for quite a while, in all honesty. I was looking into the numbers for that, and while it does sound tantalizing, the Crescent Pike is just so much better. However, that scenario that you're putting in, that works extremely well with other characters, especially Catalyst users. But Catalyst users have a different time. You don't use Chongyun with Catalyst users. You use a different character. I think I'll talk about that whenever I talk about the new weapons that we're getting. But yeah, the new weapons are crazy good. The new weapons are crazy good. I think the best one is probably the Greatsword. Just in general utility, it's probably the one that's going to see the most use, especially for Chongyun. The next one is likely going to be the Catalyst. The Spear, probably Rosaria, if I'm being honest. I just don't see other characters that would take advantage of it properly. Let's see. Diluc. I don't know if this is true, but someone said that after you level his ult to a certain level, he actually does more damage if you stack attack. I don't see that happening. If you're talking about Zhongli, I don't see that happening. The way that you stack... Well, actually, it depends on what you mean by that. Because if we're talking about what you invest into, you don't invest into... With Zhongli, you never invest into HP. The base HP is more than enough. If you're talking about what you're investing into, then yes, attack power will always outscale that. However, attack power is not the highest scaling thing. The highest value in terms of damage overall will always be elemental damage bonuses. That will always be the most consistent and the highest possible buff that you will get. Hence why I always put it at the top of the list in priority. It is always top priority. As soon as you get that, you focus into that. The next thing after that, for most characters, not always the case, will be crit rate or attack percentage. It'll mostly depend on what you want with on what your base value is really for attack. If your base value is really high for like a character like Diluc, attack percentage will sometimes come on top. But for the most part, crit rate will be the next valuable thing, with attack percentage being the third one. HP scaling in its current state is not powerful enough to offset this negative. Even with a character like Zhongli that gets so much from it, the 33% extra damage that you get from the HP scaling will never outscale the attack. Because for most cases, attack will always be more. Does this mean that you don't want to focus on HP? No, HP is really good. It'll bring a lot of damage to the table. It's just attack brings it to more places in a higher, more consistent rate. Alrighty, so that's some of the numbers regarding the normal attack chain. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. I know that the video that they put showing it looks crazy, because on one side you have like 100 damage, on the other side you see the same attack doing like 600. That's not them showing the most favorable result. That's just how the buff works. It is indeed that crazy. It almost triples his damage. And it'll continue to do so. Hopefully. It is a good change. It is definitely a good change. Now, with that, there's still a couple things that we have to talk regarding numbers. I've already talked a little bit about the resonance damage, but again, now that this ability has HP scaling, the same thing that applies to Zhongli's normal attacks also applies to the resonance. The resonance does damage every 2 seconds after cast, and now that you can cast it even with the shield, it'll get really high in damage. It'll get really, really high in damage. I think as it stands right now, it's already equaling Oz, just the pillar itself. Once you start adding resonance damage that can stack multiple times into a single place, this stone steel will more than likely do more damage than a lot of bursts. So just keep that in mind. I believe that because of this change, the Traveler is definitely going to be the #1 support for Zhongli. The damage scaling is just way, way too high. Even Ningguang won't be able to accomplish the same result. Granted, Ningguang does bring her own benefits, so if you want to use Ningguang with Zhongli, by all means go ahead. It is not a bad combo. My recommendation is still the Geo Traveler, but a lot of people don't like the Geo Traveler, and it's understandable. The pillars can actually get in, the meteors can get in the way a lot of the time. There are problems with the Geo Traveler. So if you want to use Ningguang instead, it's still a valuable option. The damage on the resonance won't be as high, but the damage on everything else will be comparable. Let's see. It looks like there's a pretty interesting conversation regarding Jean. I do want to talk about Jean because Jean is very, very strong. I want to do a full analysis on Jean at some point. I don't have one for starters, so that's going to be really hard. And I already completed the story quest, so recording for Jean is not something that I can do at the moment. I'll figure out a way to do it. I do want to talk about Jean, but this one's not going to be the stream for that one. I think I'll probably talk about Jean once we delve more into Anemo characters, so somewhere along Shao release, I expect. Yeah, I hear a lot of people get pissed about Jean, and one of the things about Jean is that she doesn't feel powerful when you get her, but she's one of those characters that scales really, really well with levels. Like, I think her elemental skill, it has, what, like a 6-second cooldown on the press version, and it does insane amounts of damage, and it also generates like 4 energy every time it's cast. It does a lot. It does a lot for your team. She also has healing, and her normal attack scaling is not bad in the slightest. She's not a top character in that department, but her damage is very strong. It's not something that you can overlook. But again, that's more a conversation for Jean. We'll talk about that once we get into Anemo characters. It's probably going to take me a while, if I'm being honest. But yeah, Jean is very strong. If you have Jean, don't underlook her. She can fill a lot of roles that other characters would have a lot of problem with, and the healing of every character with healing will always have a spot in a lot of teams. If we're talking about Jack of all trades, I don't think Zhongli fits that category super well. He's definitely more centered towards DPS now. His support is very good, but it's not the greatest still. It's a lot better, don't get me wrong. We'll talk about that. But yeah, Zhongli is most certainly a DPS character. Jean is definitely the jack of all trades because she can heal, she can be a DPS effectively, she can be an energy battery, she can be a cleanser. She has a lot of things. She can also be a damage booster with a banner ear set. Jean does a lot of things. Alrighty. So. Oh, don't even worry about Chi-Chi. Oh, if you already have a Chi-Chi, no problem. I understand where you're. Sorry, I didn't read that properly. If you get a secondary Chi-Chi, that might not be the best use of a pity. But Chi-Chi by herself is very strong, especially now the new artifact sets are coming around. A lot of the characters are very, very powerful in Genshin now. It's hard to find a character that you have problems with. Zhongli was like the most standout just because he was a 5-star. Amber and Lisa are the only other two characters in the game that I don't think they have a home. And I don't think Lisa's a bad character. Lisa's overpowered as hell. It's just her casting animations are too slow. That's the only problem with Lisa. In every other regard, Lisa's broken. That's one of the good things about Genshin. Any character that you can see, you can play to a respectable amount. Even Amber has her utility. I hate telling her that, but she does. Here, Doc. It's the racer puppy. That's my sister's doggo, which, loves barking at things. At everything. For no reason. Including the wall. Yep, there she goes. So. She's not gonna shut up. I apologize. Zhongli's insane. DPS department, he is definitely going to be one of the best characters. I don't have the exact numbers on Racer yet. From what I have seen, the numbers will be very comparable. They will be very comparable. But that's just base numbers. Zhongli brings so much more to the table that if you ask me what DPS, what physical DPS is the best one, I will tell you Zhongli. Not because Racer's worse by any means, he does a lot of damage, he's kind of crazy as well. But because Zhongli will bring you more. And one of the reasons that I want to talk about that is because of his new shield. Because this is a new shield, this is a completely different ability from the one that we used to have. And it's one that we have to talk about now because shield numbers! We already talked about resonance numbers. Shield numbers. The first thing that we have to take into consideration with Zhongli's shield. It scales with HP. And HP scaling is the strongest scaling for any shield in the game. Defense is also very strong, because defense can go very, very high, but for the most part, HP will be your strongest. HP will be the strongest stat for a shield user. Zhongli's HP being 14k without any investment means that his shield will inherit at level 6, 17.5 of that. Plus the shield scaling that Zhongli already has. So with just those two things, a very realistic Zhongli that has around 20,000 HP, most DPS Zhonglis will reach the 20k threshold just with the flower and the base HP. Let me go ahead and do the math. 20,000 multiplied by 0.175. So that is 3,500 extra health for the shield, plus the base scaling, which for Dominus Lapidus is at level 6 at around 2,000. We're just gonna round out so the numbers fill properly. So a realistic DPS Zhongli with no investments into health apart from his flower will have a base shield of 5,500. Does that sound low? Does that sound low? I can imagine that most people will think that this sounds low. Especially considering that a lot of attacks like that of a child does like 4,000 damage a hit. Does it sound low? Yeah, it sounds low, right? Let's go ahead and add multipliers, shall we? And let's also go ahead and compare it to what other characters can provide. Because the one benefit that Zhongli has always had is that his shield is insanely high. Other characters that try to get to this point will require a massive investment. And I mean massive investment. My Noel sits at around 1,800 defense. I have multiple legendary artifact sets on her at max rank that increase her defense. Her defense is one of the highest in the game, and it currently sits at 1,800 without buffs from the that's without the buffs from the weapon, White Blind. Her shield, with a maximum investment, only reaches about 5,500. The exact same that Zhongli has, with no investment. My shield from Noel, if you want to see how effective that shield is, that's the nerf version, by the way. Go ahead and look at a video called Apocalypse versus Tartaglia. That is when I fought Tartaglia for the first time, not counting the story. And that was my first iteration of the fight using Noel. It's quite something to watch. It's very short if you want to watch it, but it shows how powerful shields can be when used in the proper scenario. One of the reasons why that health value sounds low is because people don't take into consideration other bonuses that you can get into that health value. Shields, the way that they work currently, is that every elemental shield has one element that they get extra resistance, basically. It is the damage absorption. Let's go ahead and let's take Cryo, for example. Diona's Cryo Shield, one of the better shields in the game. Because it is Cryo, a lot of the Abyss floors in the late game have a lot of Cryo enemies, and having a shield that can absorb those attacks is very powerful. That's one of the reasons why Diona is very liked for melt compositions in Spiral Abyss. It's also because she enables melt and she has a lot of other things, but again, a lot of factors. Diona's shield is good. That's the important part. Diona's shield also only amounts to about 5,000-ish or so HP at level 6. The reason why it becomes so much stronger is because when placed against elements of the same type, Cryo in this case, that shield basically doubles its HP. The way that it works is that it gets multiplied by basically 150%. So it gets an additional 150% towards its own health. It's 250. That's how it works. That's how the proper math is. But a 5,500 shield on Diona, which is the most realistic outcome, will come out being somewhere around 14k. I'm rounding up numbers just so that it's a lot easier to understand. So the value gets multiplied when you're using elemental shields. That's not the only multiplier. We have things like the Bolite set, which adds an additional 40%. And as far as I have been able to test, testing this stuff is extremely difficult, by the way, so I could 100% be wrong here. But as far as I tested, the Bolite set appeared to be a multiplier not of the base value, but of the total thing. So I could be 100% wrong on this. If somebody has done further tests or has further proof of me being wrong here, please do inform me. But as far as I'm aware, the Bolite set multiplies the total damage scaling, not just the base. So adding the Bolite set onto Diona's shield, which was already at 14k, that's another 40% extra, so now you're hitting almost 20k. So you can start to see why shield values that are higher become much better. because when they're used against the element that they're meant to be used against, the shield becomes significantly stronger. This is one of the reasons why Noel in particular has a lot of defense. Not because her shield is good. The shield is good, it has a lot of power. A lot of power behind it. In the current iteration, it is a Geoshield, and Geoshields were the worst shield in the game. Now, not so much. They're a lot stronger. We're getting into that. One of the reasons why Noel was very good, still is because she has 100% Geo damage. This means that she can generate crystallized shields as soon as the cooldown finishes. And the crystallized shields, they're not strong. They're very low. They scale with levels, and they scale with levels as well as elemental mastery. Most people are not going to build elemental mastery on Geo character. Now that Albedo is a thing, you might actually be able to. That's actually one of the reasons why I see Albedo being very, very strong on the defense department. The benefit about Crystallize is that you can make the shield that you want by yourself. So if you're fighting enemies like the Oceanid, which a lot of people have problems with, even I have problems with it, I have to pull out Noel for that fight. When you're fighting the Oceanid, when you're fighting an elemental character that has the element on them, and you begin getting crystallized shields at a consistent rate, Noel can get a crystallized shield pretty much every 2 seconds. And she can make multiple of those, because the way the crystallized cooldown works is that it works based on enemy. It's not a cooldown based on the character, it's based on the enemy. You can only crystallize against an enemy every 2 seconds. So you can hit multiple enemies and you can get multiple crystallized shields like that. Just the base health will be probably somewhere around 1000, but once you actually start fighting enemies with the same element, that keeps on getting multiplied. And again, we have multiple multipliers. The Bolite set is not the only one. We also now have things like the 5-star weapons that also increase shields even further. So somebody was saying earlier on, I did manage to catch that comment, that somebody said that Zhongli could accomplish a 45k shield with the use of the new artifact sets. That is 100% correct. And it's not only correct, it is also extremely achievable. If you have the Vortex Vanquisher and you have Zhongli, you now have basically 5 lives whenever you're doing anything. The amount of health that this shield provides is no longer on a scale of numbers, it's on a scale of lives. It's on a scale of how many times you can die over and over again before the shield breaks. This boy good. This boy good. I'm at a loss for words. It's a very high value. A lot of people, when Zhongli first came out, and probably one of the reasons why a lot of people consider support to be good, was because they saw videos that said Zhongli's shield can get to 50k HP. And while that was not wrong, that is actually true, the numbers were very deceptive. Before the changes to the shield, which I haven't even talked about, I'll talk about it in a sec, the way that you reached 50k shield on Zhongli was, for starters, you had to fight a Geo enemy. If you were not taking exclusively Geo damage, the health of the shield would be almost 1/3 of the number. So you would only be able to get to like 17k at most. Even that seems a bit too high from what the current iteration can provide, which is one of the reasons why I don't consider the current iteration a good shield support. You needed a lot of investment. You needed a lot of investment just to get to 17k. And the same amount of investment, now that his shield has been changed, will now result in like 45k. So if you were investing into that scenario, congratulations, your shield is now absolutely unbreakable, and you now have 7 extra lives like every 12 seconds. More if you have the C2. It's kind of crazy. Let me go ahead and take a look at the comments, and I'll go ahead and answer some of the questions because I see that a lot of them have been popping up. something something. Max investment shield is over 22k effective, like health against literally everything. 22k health might actually be even on the low side. If the base numbers that I was testing it in with maximum investment put it at like 40k. That's assuming that you have Bowlight set, that's assuming that you have Vortex Vanquisher, that's assuming that you have really good artifacts. Not everybody's gonna get that. But even at the floor, even with no investments, at a minimum, the 5,500 shield that I'm showing right now, the way that the change works is that it now has damage absorption of up to 150% for every element in the game. So it's not only the Geo element, it's every element in the game, including physical damage. So that means that for the duration of the shield, a shield that has very low cooldown in comparison to other options, that being 12 seconds, a shield that if you have a C2, you can cast multiple times thanks to its burst being also a low cooldown, with no investments whatsoever, the shield is already at like, what is it? 8k extra health for the character, and then if you add the ball light set into that, that becomes like that becomes 12k, and then you add the Vortex Vanquisher, that becomes even more, and then you actually start investing into HP. That's when you start getting like the 22ks, and then you go even further. That's when you start getting the 30ks. That's when you go into the domains or the abyss floors that have extra shield strength. That's when you get the 40ks, and you keep on going that way. So yeah, Zhongli Shield is good now. It used to only be good against very, very select enemies. Very, very select enemies. Now it's good against everything. If with the new Zhongli Shield, even with zero investment, if the Zhongli Shield breaks, that means that your character died. That's what it is right now. If the Zhongli Shield breaks, your character just took enough damage that you would have died otherwise. So, that has been Zhongli numbers. Man, I'm already getting tired. I apologize, we still have a lot to talk about. I haven't even gotten anywhere. I'm probably gonna rush a little bit through the next ones. But yeah, now that we've talked about numbers, I want to talk a little bit about builds, and I want to talk about cementing what you want to build on him. Because now he has a lot of options. We've talked a lot about options that he had previously, and we've talked about a lot of new options that have opened up. Starting with a 5-star roster of weapons. Pretty much every single weapon that you have that's a 5-star is now valuable for Zhongli. Again, Crescent Pike will be the best option if you have it in max refinement. Not everybody's gonna have that. Not everybody's gonna have 5-star weapons either. So go with the thing that'll give you the most value in your current position. For most people that have 5-star weapons, that will be whatever 5-star you have. The best one out of the bunch is definitely the Vortex Vanquisher. That one's definitely the one that you want, because it's the one that multiplies the effectiveness of Zhongli the most. If you do not have that, go with a Crescent Pike. You don't have to worry too much about it either. Zhongli has now become a very, very friendly option for free-to-play players. As for other options, because there are other options now, you can actually use them as a support, which is weird for me to say, because I'm the one that says support is C tier, which it is at the moment, but now that the changes have come into fruition, you can legitimately use them in other options, because the shield is not just the shield anymore. It now legitimately acts like an extra life. Something that it could have done before, but only on very specific situations. Now it does that everywhere. Zhong is now a mid-tier 5-star. Well, it depends on what you put him into. Because he definitely fits more into a one-size-fits-all composition. And it'll really depend on how you build him. His potential is probably the highest in the game, even higher than Tartaglia, which I already consider to be one of the highest potential characters in the game. It's probably even higher than Klee's, and that's saying something. At the moment, it can only materialize in very, very small bursts, but if we ever get another character that works the same way as the Traveler, that it can make multiple geostructures that do not count to the limit, Zhongli's probably going to be the strongest DPS character in the entire game. This is not hyperbole either, this is just the reality of the facts. He is the highest potential character in the game. That is how powerful his Stone Steel is. Now, again, high-end potential. Most people won't, for starters, never see that, and probably won't be able to invest that high into it. In terms of where I would put him, he is definitely a DPS character, a primary DPS character at that. But his shield now does actually have a purpose, and I don't see any problem with you using him as a shield support. His access to Crystal Ice is still very good. It's not as good as that of Albedo's, or Noel for that matter, but it is potent, and it can work. It's just slow. As a support, he still has access to a Petro set, he still has the potential for the Geo Resonance. Probably not something that you're going to realistically get if you're using him as a support, but his damage to the pillar is more consistent now. It is on par with that of Xiangling or Oz. Oz might be a bit more realistic because Xiangling has very limited time windows. His pillar does look a lot like Oz now, so as a support, it's becoming a realistic option. Especially now that you can cast the pillar and the shield at the same time. That helps a lot. So you can use him as support. Would I recommend it? Probably not. His DPS is significantly higher. But if you have a character like Klee or Diluc for that matter, I wouldn't blame you for using Zhongli as a support. As far as what you want on Zhongli, his artifact sets are definitely going to be pretty much the same regardless of where you go. You're gonna want physical damage bonus if you're a DPS, geo damage bonus if you're a support. You're gonna want crit rate. Crit rate is always gonna be incredibly powerful. I don't think, unless they nerf the hell out of crit, it's probably always gonna be the second most important thing that you look for. And then at the third, you're gonna go for attack percentage. Attack percentage is always gonna be really good. At fourth, I would put HP percentage over other options. Flat attack, well, mostly good on a lot of characters, and it does benefit Zhongli. I feel like the higher investment into the shield will give you more of a benefit later on, so I would much rather have HP percentage than flat attack. But flat attack is also good. As far as energy recharge is concerned, Zhongli doesn't really need it, but if you have it, it's not that worse of a thing either. That's pretty much the priority that I want on Zhongli. As far as the support build goes, Archaic Petra, 100%. Archaic Petra is one of the highest damage bonuses that we can get in the game. It is very limited to a lot of characters. Zhongli has a really annoying time activating the effect, but he does have consistent access to Crystal Ice. So it's just a matter of getting used to the playstyle. It's valuable, it's doable now, and it is a legitimate thing that he can. Again, I would recommend DPS 100% of the time, unless you have the other OP characters like Klee or Diluc. I think he might actually be better than Keqing on the DPS department. I have to take a look at that. I would definitely have to take a look at that. As far as weapons are concerned, DPS roll, Crescent Pike, or any of the 5 stars. That's pretty much the only options for DPS. As far as support goes, the options become more varied. The one that I would like to see more often than not would probably be the Deathmatch. Deathmatch seems like its best support option. Apart from that, I can't really think of anyone that catches my fancy. Maybe the new Sacrificial Spear. That might be your best option. I would have to see how that works with the pillar. If it works the way that I think it does, that might actually be the best option. Because assuming that you cast the shield and the pillar then keeps on doing its damage, that might refresh the ability. We would have to test that. Yeah, the shield absorption changes, they change everything. This character went from having one of the least useful shields to having the most overpowered one. And it's a very wide margin as well. Do we know if the HP buffs apply to the Crescent Pike's extra attacks? I would imagine no. The Crescent Pike is a very specific damage type. It does not seem to be a part of the character, but it does seem to be influenced by physical damage bonuses. So it's kind of weird. It also gets affected by the Geo Resonance, so there might be a possibility. I don't see it. If that happens, this character goes completely out of the window as the strongest character in the game. Even I would consider that interaction a bug. I don't think it would be something that would stay in the game if it does happen. It's not the only one. We do have another damage shield on Noel. Noel can also have that type of absorption. It's just Noel's shield is not as reliable. It has a relatively short duration considering the cooldown that it has. It's strong, don't get me wrong, it's just not as strong as Zhongli's. Yeah, the absorption is insane. It's absolutely insane. For Crescent Pike Chong, would you say Bolide or 2 physical and 2 gladiators? I personally would use Bolide set just because the percentage increase for the shield is so high that I see no reason why I would want the extra, 30 damage from running the other option over the extra 2000 health of the shield. Oh yeah, that change alone makes Zhongli one of the better C0 characters that we have ever gotten. I think just base Zhongli is incredibly powerful. If you have him at C2, he becomes insane. C6, he's probably the best character in the game at that point. That one's a rough one, but he's definitely the most useful. We'll put it at that. Bolide does not work with Crescent, that is correct. Bolide does not work with Crescent. I don't think the damage difference is enough for me to warrant the replacement of the Bolide set, but I can 100% see why people would go the other direction. If you think that your shield strength is enough as is, Bloodstained Gladiators is probably the best option. But now that we have the new passive, which also gets affected, it looks like it gets affected at the very least by attack damage bonuses, like that of the Bolide set. I think the Bolide set might be the way to go. I would not go with Gladiators. Gladiators does not affect the charge attack, and the charge attack is very, very strong. You're going to be spamming the charge attack in a lot of cases. So I do want to increase the attack power of that. The only artifact set that works with Crescent is indeed the Bloodstained. That is the only artifact set that works, and that is only because physical damage bonus is the sub-stuff that it gives. As far as we are concerned, the only 2 things that affect the Crescent Pike are flat damage bonuses like that of Stellaris Phantasm, and the Geo Resonance, and physical damage bonuses. Those are the only 2 things that seem to affect the Crescent Pike. And the Crescent Pike passive does scale with attack, which is also one of the reasons why you want more attack on Zhongli. Because 9 times out of 10 you're going to be using the Crescent Pike, and the other 1 time you're using a 5-star that benefits from attack power. The reason why Gladiator works is because it increases the attack percentage. So it increases the attack, and that's why you get damage bonuses. That is so minimal though that it's kind of debatable whether you even want it or not. If you really want to min-max, I would probably go with Bloodstained Bolide. 2 Bloodstained, 2 Bolide. The damage bonus that you lose from Gladiators is, frankly, very meaningless. So much so to the point that I would much rather have the extra shield from the Bolide set, even if I'm not getting the 4-piece effect. But yeah, those are my recommendations. If you're going support, Archaic Petra all the way. There's an argument for Noblesse, but I feel that if your Noblesse support is Zhongli, then what are you running for your other supports? Archaic Petra is definitely going to be the one that you're going to be looking for most often for the support build. For the DPS build, you either want Bolide set, full Bolide set, or you want a two-piece Bloodstained, 2-piece Gladiators, or Bolide, depending on what you want. If you want the absolute maximum damage, go with Gladiators. I think that's wasting too much of the potential, so I would recommend that you go for Bolide instead. Yeah, with changes, main DPS Zhongli is not only a thing, it's probably going to be the preferred build. I do think that support has quite a lot of benefits, especially if you have him at C2. C6, again, I've already said he's probably one of the most flexible characters if you have him that high. I would not recommend that you go that high, though. The cost investment is way, way too high. If you're willing to spend that much, you're better off just going for the C2 and Zhongli, and then saving the rest for another character like Albedo or Xiao. But that's just my recommendation. The cost investment of getting a character to C6 will almost never be worth the resource investment that you could get by just waiting for other characters. Yeah, he won't be the best DPS unless he has like a really broken interaction in the future, which realistically he could have. His kid is probably waiting for one single mistake from Mihoyo to be the most powerful kid in the game. But even when that happens, because let's be honest, it's gonna happen eventually, they're probably gonna fix it really quickly. Would an 4-piece Bolide be better than 2 Bloodstained? I have to look at the numbers. I really have to look at the numbers of the official release, because depending on how high... Oh, that's what it says. Depending on how high the scaling goes, the extra damage from Bolide might be better. Initial optics look to favor Bloodstained for the damage department. But yeah, I just don't know. We don't know the full interaction of the full scale of the buff change. We know enough to make a respectable guess, but I wouldn't look too much into the deep numbers. The safest option is to say Bloodstained Bolide. That's the safest option. Well, for pure damage, Bloodstained Gladiators, but utility, Bloodstained Bolide. The damage difference is probably going to be minuscule either way, so I don't see which one's better, at least not immediately. I still think Bolide will be better because, again, it increases charge attacks. It increases charge attacks by far more. His charge attack is very, very powerful, and it can definitely outscale the extra damage that you're going to be getting from the Crescent Pike. Yeah, Trousers. That's also one of the things. If you're stacking physical damage bonuses, at that point, the second you start stacking things, Bolide said is just going to outscale it significantly higher. You make a good point. You make a really good point. Ooh, if you have Vortex, oh man, if you have Vortex, that adds a lot of complexity to the kit, because the same thing happens again. At that point, we just have to see which one scales better, and I think that's probably still going to be the Bolide set. The way that I see it, the Bolide set just benefits the Bolide set benefits his overall kit much, much more than the Bloodstain does. Because the Bloodstain, at the end of the day, it's only the physical damage, while the Bolite set is the physical damage and the shield. And the shield is very, very powerful now. So increasing that even further might be the way to go. At the end of the day, it's basically just going to be a sacrifice. What do you want best? Do you want absolute maximum damage and sacrifice the shield, or are you willing to lose a small percentage of damage in order to increase your defense? I think for a majority of people, a full Bolite set will be the way to go, because that's the value proposition that has the highest value. It's not the one that has the most specific damage, it's the one that has the highest overall value. Not only that, Bloodstain. I mean, if you're farming Bloodstain, you'd be farming the Noblesse Oblige set as well. Noblesse Oblige is really good, but if you're farming Bolite, you're also farming Archaic Petra, which you want for your support either way. So, again, based on your positioning is what you're going to go with. My recommendation and what I would do is going for the Bolite set, but I can see the benefits of going the other route. Let's see, my level 70 Zhongli without food and without max artifacts, 4 please and the best. Noblesse burst around 17,000. Yeah, Noblesse is looking like an option that's valuable for the burst DPS. I just think that, especially now that the pillar is so much more consistent, focusing on the pillar might be the way to go for the support variant. The extra geo damage that you get from Archaic Petra is very valuable, and the extra 35% damage from the Archaic Petra as well is also very valuable. But yeah, that pretty much goes for artifact sets, and for builds, he can fit anywhere now, and that's probably a good thing. I think its DPS is the most reliable. That's where I would place him. But if you already have very powerful DPS, he could be a realistic option for you. Would I recommend it? Probably not. I think Albedo might still be... It's definitely going to be better. Albedo is definitely going to be better, so if you have not summoned yet and you're looking for a Geo support, go with Albedo instead of Zhongli. That is my recommendation. If you're looking for a DPS, however, Zhongli is looking like one of the best options. The only other option that could compare, at least that we've seen so far, is probably Xiao, and Xiao has a lot of weaknesses that... well, they don't make him weak by any means. He's very strong. They do make him annoying to play. Do you think HP main set would be a good option now? No. No, no, no. Never. Never go with HP main stat. Attack percentage all the way. This is something that a lot of people do have to understand. The absolutely only position where you will go for an HP main stat would be in the support role, and even there, you're going to be losing out a lot of damage from going for that HP main stat. If your teams are really dying a lot, that's when you go HP main stat, but for the most part, just the base value should be more than enough. Just the base value should be more than enough. If you get it as a substat, that's probably the better option. Let's see, does the Bitter set give extra geo damage if you pick a crystallized shard from the little dragons? Yes, it does. It is actually the only way to get the Petra set to give you that bonus. It is so unreliable that I don't say it, but it does work. Let's see, I'm thinking Zhongli, Physical Carry, Albedo, and Chi-Chi official for Superconduct. That would actually be very strong. Albedo doesn't look like the best fit for Zhongli, but now the changes are now in place. I still think you're better off with a Traveler instead of Albedo, if I'm being honest. I think like my god team for Zhongli is probably Zhongli as main DPS, Fischl as damage support, ideally with either the Thundering Fury set. Then we have Chi-Chi with the Noblesse Oblige for the healer build, as well as Cryo support. And then we have the Archaic Petra Traveler for increasing the damage of Fischl, and at the same time enabling energy generation and Geo-Resonance for Zhongli. I think that's probably my dream team for Zhongli. Does not give you the buff to Geo. Really, when I tested it, it looked like it worked. I might have to test that again. I have a C5 Fischl. If I get her C6, I'll use her with my Zhongli. Oh my god, a Zhongli with a C6 Fischl. Yeah, that, oh boy, that's strong. That is very strong. Because one of the things that you can do, and one of the things that makes Fischl so good, especially in the support department, is that her Stellar Predator, I believe that's the one. No, it's the other one. It's the second Ascension passive that, whenever you cause a reaction with Electro, Fischl does a percentage of your damage instantly. And the thing about this is that it works with Crystallize. So if you have a pillar locked, if you have somebody locked down by Zhongli, who is now getting the Electro enchantment from C6 Fischl, that essentially means that you're doing Fischl's damage like 3 times over. It's crazy. Let's see, rank 5 Crescent Pike or rank 5 1 Vortex for DPS Zhongli with 4-piece Bolide. Crescent Pike probably wins. Vortex is very, very strong. But if you're talking only DPS, definitely Crescent Pike. The Crescent Pike is just that powerful. It's just that good. There's no debating it. Let's see, I only have Traveler and Chongyun at C6. Ooh, Chongyun at C6, that's actually really good. Chongyun is looking to be one of the better characters that we will get from the Cryo element. I'm looking into Chongyun support builds that involve other main DPSs using the new Cryo set. I know it sounds crazy, but it looks surprisingly sound in my tests. Crescent Pike is honestly a mistake on my host's part. Let's be honest, it is. It absolutely is. It changes game design way too much. But it's something they can't get rid of. The second they touch the Crescent Pike, there's going to be an uproar even bigger than the one there was for Zhongli. So yeah, I don't think that's going to work too well. Scour's Pine, yes, it is very good. It is very good in Zhongli. I still think the Crescent Pike becomes better after C3, but if you do not have that, by all means go for the Scour's Pike. Chongyun plus Bennett is melt comp. Yeah, Chongyun plus Bennett is like the... It's probably one of the strongest compositions that you can get in the game. Because one of the things that you can do with Chongyun plus Bennett can generate almost infinite amounts of energy with every single one of his elemental skills dealing the melt damage bonus. And by the time that you finish by the time that his burst finishes, A, you're more than likely already have it again, and B, if you don't, you can just switch. You can just do a full switch rotation, drop all the elemental skills, and you will most certainly have it at that point. So Bennett is probably the best battery character in the game, and if you combine them with Chongyun, he's probably the only elemental skill DPS in the game. There's an argument for Lisa, but I've tried it. It does not work. It's funny to watch. It does not work. You'll die a lot. That's what I wish for weapon skins. Oh god, I agree. I hate the design of the Crescent Pike. There's some people that like it. I don't judge them for it, but I absolutely hate that design. I would much rather have literally anything else. Let's see. I've pretty much gotten very far away from official conversation about Zhongli. There's one more character that I want to talk about that's going to benefit massively from all these changes. After that, we'll come back to Q&A. Now, with all the things that I've mentioned about Zhongli, all the changes that he's gotten, all the changes that Geo has had, it's fair to assume that Zhongli is the best winner out of the 1.3 patch, correct? I mean, it's a fair assumption. We've been talking for like 2 hours about Zhongli non-stop. He has to be the best character, the character that gets the most out of the new patch, right? I think MiHoYo might have forgotten about one character that I already considered to be the strongest character in the game, and they just increased her damage by 20%, and her survivability doubled? Let's talk about Noel for a second. Let me get my version of Noel. Oh, wrong one. Oh boy, my computer's lagging quite bad. I hope that doesn't cause a problem in the stream. Alright, so while this loads... I know that a lot of the changes were targeted in order to make other characters better, and Noel was definitely already in that conversation. Noel is a very underrated character that has massive bonuses. I think if we're talking about the one character that's actually a one-man army, that's probably Noel. The only weakness that Noel has is that she has a hard time generating energy. But the Geo element has a lot of really powerful energy generators in that role. The Traveler by themselves, I guess, can do the job incredibly well. They can generate, 12 energy orbs every 18 seconds. And there's another one that can also do that in Ningguang at C2. So we do have a lot of really powerful characters that can generate enough energy for Noel to sustain herself. And in addition to that, all of the buffs that affected Zhongli also affected Noel. Now, she doesn't have HP scaling on her basic attacks. That would be busted. Probably not that much in all honesty, because she's a Claymore user, so she wouldn't make that much benefit from it. But in terms of what Noel just got buffed in, her shield has 5,000, can get really high up. It can get comparable to non-investment Zhongli, and the fact that you can even compare them, that's impressive by itself. The Geo Resonance just fixed Noel's greatest weakness, and that was that she had no way of increasing her damage. Now, she can spread the Geo Resonance, the 20% reduced Geo, in a massive AoE. Noel just got a massive buff, an absolutely massive buff, that pretty much places her as the top free-to-play character in the game. Before, it wasn't hard. Noel was already very good, but now this new change has come into play, I think Noel might actually be the best free-to-play character in the game. And that's saying something. We have a lot of very powerful free-to-play characters. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. I want to pull up an image that I've already put in a lot of videos, just to show kind of how I feel about Noel. Let's see, where is it? Here it is. Am I gonna get in trouble for putting this? Probably not. If I do, whatever. Oh, it's not letting me put it. No, it's not letting me put it. Okay, my computer's lagging way too much. Is Noel good at C0? Noel is insanely good. C1 is what makes her the most powerful. Well, yeah, it's what makes her. It's one of the things that makes her the most consistent healer. Not the most consistent, but one of the most consistent healers. It's just, she is reliant on constellations, don't get me wrong. Her C1 makes her healing much, much better, and her C6 makes her the strongest character in the game. At least in my opinion. Noel is crazy. One of the best things about Albedo is that Albedo has pretty much consistent access to Crystallize when you place him as support. He has permanent Crystallize that appears in melee range, meaning that in most cases you will always have a Crystallize shield of the specific element that you're fighting, or of an element of a character that you have. For example, Barbara if you're using her, or Fischl. So access to consistent Crystallize means that you have massive shield bonuses. These shields are now becoming stronger and stronger by the day, and Noel's own shield not only provides healing, but is also now the same as Zhongli's. It's weaker, but it's still massive. Albedo would be a better Noel support than Zhongli? Yeah, 100%. Albedo would probably be better than Zhongli. When it comes to supports that you want for Noel, she is the second Geo DPS. Well, technically the first, but she's probably the second in position for Geo DPS. Because all of her attacks are extremely wide-reaching AoE attacks that have very high scaling and are exclusively Geo. Now the Geo Resonance has 20% defense reduction. This pretty much means that in a lot of cases, a lot of enemies that had Geo resistance now won't have that resistance. And removing that amounts to a lot. The damage formula for Genshin is a divisor. It divides damage. So removing some of that will increase your damage by a massive amount. Doesn't Ningguang essentially have a permanent 35% damage bonus uptime? Yeah, she does. She 100% does, doesn't she? But that kind of goes for everybody. The thing about Ningguang DPS, she's not bad. She's amazing. I love Ningguang. She's probably one of my favorite characters. She quickly became one of my favorite characters once I got her. The thing about her in the DPS department is that she's slow. Her basic attacks, her normal attacks are very slow. In order for you to get the maximum benefit out of them, you either have to have the C6, or you have to spend a lot of time on the field in order to get the maximum amount of crystals in order for you to get the full bonus. So when you place her in the DPS table, again, damage per second, her casting time is too long for her to merit a good position in DPS. In support, that's less of an issue, because you don't have to worry too much about it, and even in the dead time, she can provide a lot of benefits. In the DPS department, the slow casting animation definitely hurts her. If you have the C6, however, the Majesty of the Seven Stars, she is amazing. Like, she's probably one of the highest single target DPS in the game. She's insane. Her Star Shatter is on a 12-second cooldown, and being able to have a +7 charge attack on cooldown, because her energy generation is also amazing, and if you have her at C6, then you also have her C2, which allows her to cast her Jade Screen multiple times. You're gonna be casting Star Shatter constantly. But again, this is with constellations. Without constellations, she can compete, but she's not an option that I would consider putting at the forefront, unless you already have things that make her more viable. Like if you have Memories of Hope, or of Dust, my bad, Memories of Dust, she becomes a lot stronger, like a lot stronger. At that point, you can start challenging other DPSs. but again, you're relying on a 5-star weapon that a lot of people don't have because when that weapon was available, not a lot of people rolled for it. Yeah, that's true. Animation canceling could be very viable for DPSs. I might have to take a look into that. I hadn't considered animation canceling for it. Oh, hello. It's nice to see that new people are joining for this. I honestly didn't expect many new people to be joined for this stream. I've been going on for a long time, and I haven't even talked about half of what I wanted to talk. Okay, you bring a good point. I had not considered animation canceling for Ningguang. That might actually change quite a bit of things. I have to look into that. I'll definitely have to look into that. I still think that I would place Noel higher just because AoE DPS is very valuable, but against boss fights, I might change the role a little bit. I'm probably going to change the... I'm going to take a look at the numbers. I'm going to see if I can get the animation to be at a realistic rate, and then if it works, I'll see what comes up. I still haven't done the Ningguang analysis, so I'm kind of happy that I got this information before I did that. Alrighty then. So I did want to bring Noel to everybody's attention because Noel is a character that everybody has. I'm assuming that by this point everybody has rolled their Novice wishes, and if you haven't, you should 100% do that. It's a free 4-star character. And she's really, really good now. She was really good before. Now that she has this buff, she might be a realistic option for your second DPS in Abyss, especially because she's a healer. So in terms of what you need specifically for Abyss, Noel is looking like one of the better options now. Yeah, C1 on Ning also has a lot of AoE on her normal attacks. Ningguang is definitely going to get a lot of benefits from this. I think it might be worth to have a talk about Ningguang. I already placed Ningguang very highly in terms of the Geo characters because her single target damage is absolutely insane. Star Shatter has really high scaling, and it can be increased by even further when used in conjunction with her Jade Screen. Her constellations are incredibly good, and she also has access to a lot of very powerful buffs, especially now that we have the new Geo Elemental Resonance. I might definitely have to take a second look at Ningguang in terms of DPS potential. I had not even considered that you could cancel her auto attacks, because her auto attacks are very slow. But if you can cancel them in a similar way to that of Klee, that might actually place her really, really high in single target DPS. If you have Noel but no constellations, don't even worry. I am at C0 constellation for Noel, and I am destroying everything. I don't even have her properly built. That's a thing that impresses me. She just doesn't die, and she deals so much damage when she's in her sweeping time. Sweeping time is insane, especially if you have the white blind. Huh. Darth Kanika. Was not aware of that. I didn't know they were gonna do, Oh no, yeah, they're gonna do that, aren't they? 1.2, we're gonna be getting free wishes. We're gonna be getting free wishes in, 1.2. Huh. But, anywho. That's pretty much all that I wanted to mention about Noel. If you have Noel, and you're still looking for a second team, you might be in a good position if you consider Noel. She's definitely like a secondary option to Zhongli if you don't have Zhongli or if you don't plan on getting him. But with that out of the way, we're gonna go over to Q&A. Alrighty then, so Q&A. Let's go ahead and start with some of the questions that I can see. Let's see, should I roll for Albedo Banner? I already have Bennett at C1. And let's see. Albedo Banner. Well, Here's the thing about Albedo. Albedo is a very flexible character, but he does need some support from his main DPS. And I know that's weird because Albedo is a support, but for Albedo to be at his maximum efficiency, he wants somebody that can prime his crystallize. He wants somebody that can give you the infinite shields. And now, there's support characters like Barbara that can accomplish that same scenario. And I do expect Barbara official Albedo to be one of the strongest cores that you can enable for a DPS character. I expect that to be very, very strong. If you have a DPS character that can take advantage of infinite crystallize, I'm talking Kaching, I'm talking Klee, Diluc, Razor. If you have those characters as your current main DPS, I see no reason why you wouldn't go for Albedo. Because Albedo would allow you to get so many benefits for so cheap that it would not be a smart decision to not at a bare minimum try to get them. When it comes to the characters on the Albedo banner, I have not been able to confirm with 100% certainty what they are. We've been getting a lot of leaks here and there, and some of them kind of look a bit fake if I'm being honest. So I can't give advice based on those leaks. If we do get Bennett on that banner, Bennett by himself might be worth rolling for. If you get Albedo during that process, that is definitely something good. And if you get a benefit from getting both of them, then I see no reason why not to. The question of should you roll for Albedo, or Zhongli for that matter, will mostly depend on what you have. If you do not have a good DPS character already, or your DPS character does not feel fitting or can fit better as a support, I would recommend that you roll for Zhongli. If you already have a good DPS character that can take advantage of Albedo's benefits, go for Albedo instead. Alrighty, let's go ahead and take a look at other comments. Is White Blind or the new 5-star Claymore better on Noel? I think White Blind is still better. The new 5-star Claymore is definitely a very strong option. I think we run into the same problem as with the Crescent Pike. It'll mostly depend on how invested your White Blind is. Because I think White Blind at maximum efficiency is like, what, 48% on both sides? So 48% attack, 48% defense. That's a lot of bonuses. But then again, the new one also has a lot of bonuses that bring a lot of power to it. But then again, White Blind has defense. So it's not an easy decision. It is definitely not an easy decision. I think the safest way about it is if you have the White Blind below Refinement 4 and you have the new Claymore, use the new Claymore. If not, continue with White Blind. White Blind is a cheap option that gives so much power, and the fact that it can be refined multiple times is what makes it good, because it has a very powerful effect. It is not as strong as Crescent Spike, so 5-star weapons can outscale it, especially the new one. The new one will probably be better for most cases, just not off the gate, because I think most people will realistically have their White Blind like a level 2, unless you went for the Prototype Adminus. But yeah, make your decision based on that. Let's see. Rolling in the banner, yes, this is very important. If you're trying to roll for C2, the chances of you getting the C2 without spending a ludicrous amount of resources are very low. So you just gotta keep that in mind. If you're spending over 70 wishes, you're now entering a very risky territory in which you're very close to getting the 5-star character. Heck, it happened to me and I only rolled for like 26. it is not a risk. It's a very risky investment to try to pull for constellations in particular. If you don't want the character, if you don't feel Albedo will fit your team, it might be best to skip and then wait for a character that will fit the team. Albedo fits into very much a lot of teams, so it's unlikely you'll be in that scenario. But make sure to weigh your options carefully. Unforged, that is a new weapon. It's very, very good. Like, I definitely want it, but again, 5-star weapon. Not everybody will have it. White Blind is very, very strong in that regard. I'm at 75 pulls and I have a C6 Noel. Should I get Zhongli because of the future buffs? Ooh, that's a hard one. That's a hard one. If you already have a C6 Noel, you kind of don't need more Geo. I think Albedo might be better for Noel. It'll depend on energy generation pretty much, because at the moment for Noel it's either Ningguang or the Traveler. If Albedo has really good energy generation, that might change. You're definitely in a very difficult situation. I think it's probably going to depend on what you want for your second team, in all honesty. You already have one of the more powerful Geo supports and Geo DPSs, my bad, in the entire game, so doubling up on Zhongli might be a conflict of interest. In your position, I feel like Xiao might be better just because he opens up more options. But I wouldn't blame you if you want Zhongli. Zhongli is just really good overall. Let's see, I might try to pull for him, but I'm so sick of the Geo boss. Oh yeah. The Geo boss. It's kind of funny because I fight the Geo boss with Noel. I fight the Geo boss with Noel because the shield pretty much makes me immune to all the damage, and my Shangling and Fischl can deal with the Geo boss no problem. But I understand where that annoyance comes from. Let's take a look at other questions. Gaia will be very powerful. Favonia's Greatsword on Noel. Eesh, that's a hard decision. Energy recharge is extremely strong on Noel, but it's not strong enough to the point where you want to put a main substat as energy recharge. Unless the passive is insanely good, which in this case it really isn't. The percentage chance is way too low for it to be considered a viable buff. I would rather have White Blind, in all honesty. Even if the DPS is lower, that's not even if the uptime is lower, that's not really a negative, because you want to have dead times. Dead times are essentially when you perform your switches, when you get your energy. So having dead times is not a negative, it can be a positive. The problem lies when the dead times are too long. That's when you start running into issues. For the most part, if you manage to get at least like 25 energy recharge, that's about where I'm sitting at the moment on my Noel. That seems to be more than enough for me to cast Sweeping Time constantly. So I think the Favonia's Greatsword might be too much overkill. You're just gonna have to get lucky with substats, really. Unfortunately, that's kind of the situation. Let's see, you got Unforged while rolling for the Vortex, and now you're conflicted as to what should you use it for. Honestly, this is gonna sound a bit crazy, but if you have Chongyun already, that's a hard one, because I think a Chongyun with the Unforged plus Albedo could actually be a very, very strong combo. Like, go with Chongyun, Albedo, Barbara, maybe Vido or Fischl. That could be very, very strong. That's a lot of buffs that you're generating. That is a lot of buffs that you're generating. Albedo is probably going to be your best option in that case, just because you already have a DPS that fulfills all of his pretty much everything that he wants. Are Chong and Xingyan any good? I've heard nothing about them after the entire situation. Yeah, sorry about that. Chongyun has taken quite a lot of priority. Chongyun and Xingyan are amazing. They are really, really good. Xingyan is looking to be one of the more valuable buffers in the game, just because of the amount of things that she can enable. A lot of her potential is locked behind Constellations, however. So she's a lot less reliable than other options, but once you get her to C2, she does a lot. She does some very powerful damage. It's not something to overlook. Her potential as a shield damage support is very high. She has buffs for physical damage, which is probably one of the more common elemental, or one of the more common damage types. And what's it called? Blazing Revolution, I believe her burst is. When you have it at C2, it also generates the shield at maximum efficiency. And the shield can provide a pretty decent dot effect. It's not super powerful, but it is powerful enough to enable quite a lot of things. Xingyan is looking very powerful. It's just, she needs those constellations. She's powerful as is, but her consistency isn't. And that's probably what's dragging her down too much. After her C2, that changes quite massively though. Chongyun, on the other hand, is probably going to become one of the better 4-star DPSs. I rate him super high on the list. And if it's true that the next banner is going to be Bennett, having Chongyun and Bennett together makes one of the best teams in the game. Not only that, but even Chongyun by himself, now that we have the new Cryo set, he can enable 55% crit rate with no investment. And he pairs extremely well with Barbara, because he can keep, with a Barbara and Chongyun, you can keep enemies locked down almost indefinitely. It's very easy to make Chongyun powerful now. So yeah, he's very strong. I plan on making videos on both of them, but I keep on getting distracted by other things that keep on taking my priority. Either I get too sick to actually make them, or MiHoYo decides to drop one of the biggest bombshells of the year. Probably not the biggest, but you know what I mean. Let's see, let's take a look at other questions. Livonius, but in a full support build, I believe this is for Noel, I consider Noel support to be absolutely horrendous. No, maybe not so much. The new Geo Shield is actually very powerful. Enough to maybe warrant a position. I just think it'll be way too awkward. I think DPS is definitely the best role for Noel. Let's see. Best team for Zhongli. Yeah, the absolute best team that I can consider is probably Zhongli, MC, Qiqi, and Fischl. That's probably the best team that I can imagine off the top of my head. There might be one that's more efficient, but that's the one that comes out on top for me, because that means you have consistent access to Cryo and Electro residences, which are two of the hardest hitting enemies in the game. From the Electro Hammer Fatui guy, and then just Cryo being super annoying in Abyss. And Fischl does nutty damage. She's crazy. Qiqi, probably the most powerful healer in the game, just very hard to get to that point. And then you have the MC, which has some of the highest energy generation. Like, the only person that has higher energy than the MC is Bennett. And Bennett is just busted. Zhongli and Qiqi would never die. I do not see how you kill a Zhongli Qiqi team. I have a feeling that you could just rubber band. You could just get like an auto clicker to make sure that you're attacking and pressing the E button, and then just switching between those two characters, and you probably would never die. So let's see, Noel with DPS and Zhongli as support DPS. They kind of go with the same way, because one of the things about DPS Noel is that she supports by DPSing. I know it's weird, but everything that you do as a support with Noel, you accomplish as a DPS, while at the same time dealing very high damage. The same goes for Zhongli. I think both of them fit that hybrid category of support DPS. But the thing is, Zhongli fits way more into the DPS category. So the support qualities, they just kinda happen. Or, well, they're going to. Let's see, that's a shame, I hate the GMC. A lot of people hate the GMC, and it's understandable. The meteors are annoying to deal with. Once you get used to them, they're not that bad. Once you take into account a lot of the little intricacies about them, you get used to them fairly quickly, and you can cast them very, very quickly once you're used to it. I can see why you hate it. It was definitely annoying at the beginning, but I ended up loving the GMC. If you don't like the GMC, I think the best option to switch after that would probably be Ningguang, but with the new changes, you'd be losing so much resonance damage. I don't know if it's worth it. Maybe if the Ningguang was at a higher C, at a higher constellation. If you ever like at C2, C6, probably Ningguang, but lower than C6, probably the MC. You actually don't like how he looks. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the male MC, that's why I chose female. Not even gonna lie on that one. Let's see, would Bennett, Chongyun, Zhongli, Fischl work? Or sorry, would Bennett / Chongyun? Zhongli, Fischl, MC, and then Chongyun or Bennett. It's actually really funny that you mentioned this, because the team that my friend has is actually Zhongli, Fischl, Bennett. And I think he uses Ningguang instead of the MC. But they both accomplish the same thing, basically. So, yes, Bennett, Zhongli, Fischl, and the MC works extremely fine. It's actually one of my recommended teams. Chongyun. Before the changes to Cryo, I would have told you that no. He would affect Zhongli in a very negative way. Now that we have the changes to both Cryo and Zhongli, this is a very high investment build and something that I don't expect a majority of the player base will ever achieve, but it is definitely one of the builds that I've been playing with the most, and it seems it seems to work just from base numbers, so that's why I'm gonna say it. Zhongli with a Vortex Vanquisher, or any other 5-spear for that matter, with Chongyun and Barbara. Why these combinations in particular? This is gonna be weird, I know, but the idea of the build is that you give Zhongli the Cryo Elemental, the Cryo set, and then you use Chongyun to give him the Cryo bonus. I know it's weird, but the thing is, Chongyun has attack speed buffs. Zhongli, with the new changes, loves that. And Zhongli does geo damage with his pillar. So, if he's permanently freezing enemies, he's now triggering the freeze effect. And the freeze effect is very strong. In addition to that, your last character can be something like Fischl, which can enable even more ridiculousness with Superconduct. And since you already have Barbara, you don't need healing. It's weird, but the damage is there, and it's sound. It is very high investment though, because you can't use the Crescent Pike in this scenario, so you do need a 5-star weapon. Let's see, let's take a look at other questions. Do you think the Abyss floor will ever change? Yes, I do think the Abyss floor will change eventually. I do not think that leaving Abyss as is the right decision. I think they probably have to rework Abyss in its entirety. I just don't think that's going to happen this early on. Abyss in its current state feels like something that was tacked on at the end of the development in order to add a time sink to the game, so that people don't get bored all the time. The current version of Abyss is very rough, and I don't think it'll remain the same as that way. I expect that after the first year of Genshin Impact, they're probably going to do a full Abyss rework. The Canon Gang. Yeah, I'm aware that the male MC is supposed to be the canonical protagonist. I just like Lumine. She looks nicer. That's it. That's all it is. Yeah, Chongyun is... In almost every scenario, Chongyun is absolutely horrible as a support, but there's like 2 or 3 situations that actually make him good. Which is weird, because I can't say Chongyun is a horrible support, because he has like those couple interactions that make him insanely powerful. The one thing that I can say about Chongyun is that he's really powerful in both roles, support and DPS, but for both roles he only wants to play nice with a very limited number of characters. So if you don't have those characters, he will feel very weak. That's probably going to change now that the new artifact set is up, because Chongyun by himself is a lot stronger. So if you do end up getting those characters that work well with him, he'll become much, much stronger. Another thing that does benefit Chongyun is that him and Barbara can pretty much enable infinite freeze. Add a Xingqiu, I believe that's how you say it, to the table, and if you're not immune to freeze, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Let's see, do you think Ayaka's good with her current stats? Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and take a look. I think Ayaka's going to be very strong regardless of what happens, just because of the way that her basic attacks are set up. They're set up in a very similar way to what we've seen from Keqing. They're very fast in deployment. The sword attacks are usually very strong. The fact that she has a cryo character that has conversion is going to make her very strong because of not only the cryo elemental resonance, but also the new cryo set, and her ability to freeze enemies almost permanently with the likes of Barbara, in much the same way as Chongyun, will also make her very, very powerful. Let me go ahead and take a look at the base stats, however, and hopefully they didn't pull another Zhongli, because the character design by itself is very strong for Ayaka. I think her burst is definitely the worst part of her ability. Fast, low damage, energy generation capabilities are not bad for elemental skills. So yeah, her elemental skill is not bad. Her burst is definitely not something that I'm excited for. Alright, let's take a look. Ayaka, here she is. Alright, she seems to have very basic scaling. Huh, interesting. A multi-hit on her 4th chain. Oh, charge attack damages. Wow. Okay, yeah, no, that's a no-no. Why is her charge attack so low? 55% on the charge attack. 20 stamina cost. That, Am I reading this wrong? Does it hit multiple times or something? Because that seems very low. The charge attack is only like 10 points of scaling higher than the normal attack. Huh. Yeah, no, if they release her with this number, that's gonna be really bad. That's gonna be really bad. I still think her normal attack scaling looks normal. Normal-ish. It is definitely on the lower side. I don't like that at all. I really don't like that at all. Oh boy. Yeah, this is starting to look like another Zhongli. Let's just hope they learn from their mistakes. This definitely looks too low. Alright, let's go ahead and take another questions. I think I am gonna start preparing to end the stream, so I'm probably gonna go ahead and answer just a couple more questions and then we're gonna end it. Alright. They should add different endgame content? Yeah, definitely. I think the new event, the Hypostatic Symphony, is definitely something they should look at more carefully. Because I feel like that type of endgame content definitely fits with the style of Genshin. Especially if they add something like, imagine that between every bout of Hypostatic Symphony, you have to go through like a small area, like a spiral that you have to clear enemies in order to get to the next one. I think something like that could actually be very fun, like a boss rush mode, in which you have small periods of time where you have to fight and progressively stronger enemies until you get to like an end goal. I feel like that would be very fun. When it comes to Ayaka, a lot of people hype her up because the kit looks good. Being able to have a damage convert on your kit that's permanent gives you a lot of benefits. Just ask Kaching how that feels. And having a charge attack that looks that good as well is also very powerful. But man, I had not looked at Ayaka's numbers recently, and yeah, this looks rough. This looks very rough. If these are the final numbers, she's worse than Kea. If these are the final numbers, she is worse than Kea. So let's just hope that that's not the case. Again, different things could change. Maybe her attack chain got made a lot faster, or there's something that we're missing from the animations. Animations are a very important part of the kit. Ganyu can tell you a lot about that one. So I think it's too early to make a decision, a final decision, but this does not look strong. We definitely have to we have to see more before we can make an informed decision. Let's see. Zhongli, Child, Luke, and Kaching. How is this team? Is it good? Oof, not really. No, that team has very awful synergy. The characters themselves are very, very powerful, don't get me wrong. But putting them all on the same role, or basically on the same team, in this direction, does not allow any of them to shine. Zhongli is probably the only realistic support that you have, with the other two losing out quite a lot of damage in all regards. From what I can tell, you already have a lot of investment into characters like Diluc and Child, with Diluc having a Prototype Aminus at rank 3, and Child having a 5-star bow. Child and Diluc did not synergize well at all, and having either as a support just doesn't give you much benefit. If what you want is to make the team better, I think for your specific scenario, it might be best to just separate the teams entirely, and then focus around, and then build different teams for those characters. Child can fit as a support character. I do not recommend it. He's definitely the best. He's definitely best when he's in the main role, and the same goes for Diluc. Kaching, same deal. For your particular scenario, Pepai, I think your best case would probably separate your cores, have Zhongli be one core in particular with the GOMC, then give Child characters like Fischl, maybe Barbara, depending on how invested you have her, and then have Diluc probably with Shangling. Your Kaching is kind of out of place here, which is unfortunate because she's also really, really good. Yeah, you basically just have too many DPSs. That's the core point that's the core problem here. You need characters that can do their damage quicker than the characters you currently have. I think just with what you're showing me, you can probably focus on your Diluc quite a bit, and the same with Zhongli once he actually gets buffed, to make very effective team compositions. And then in the same teams, sub out Child or Kaching, depending on the situation. I think that your best core is probably going to be Xiangling, Fischl if you have her, and then Barbara. And then rotate your main characters depending on what you're fighting. It's going to be very expensive to get them to a proper position. If you want my recommendation, focus on either Diluc or Zhongli. I think Diluc is definitely your best bet, because Diluc is just overpowered. That's just the plane of it. And if you're using Diluc at that point, Kea will work really well. So probably go with Diluc, Kea, Barbara, Fischl, and then upgrade the other characters that I mentioned. That's probably your best bet. Chong with Barbara or Xingqiu. Honestly, both if you have them. If not, if you have Xingqiu, I'm gonna call it Xingqiu. If you have Xingqiu, he's probably better, but that also depends on who your healer is. Honestly, if you have both, just use both. Use both of them and then add a Fischl. That'll increase your damage pretty significantly. SS tier meta character for Ayaka, save your promise for her. Oh man. Yeah. I don't think Ayaka's looking that strong anymore. I think she has a lot of potential because, again, Cryo Element is very strong, especially with the new Cryo set, but eesh, these base numbers, they do not look good. Even her elemental skill looks awful. I wouldn't have a problem with this where the cooldown not so high, because at this point this is like Kea. She's comparable to Kea, and Kea is strong, but Kea is a free character. Yeah, this does not look like a character that I would wish for, not in her current state. Again, I'm hoping this is not the final result, but we've already seen what happened with Zhongli, so my hopes for this type of situations are very, very minimal at this point. Electro Archon will cause an uproar, leading Mihoyo to buff Electro. Maybe? I think that could potentially happen, because Electro has a lot of good, but also a lot of bad. On the DPS department, Electro's not ideal, mainly because it doesn't have any multiplicative effects that you can add. Which is one of the reasons why it wasn't that powerful at the beginning. But they've changed quite a bit of things that have made Electro way more favorable. Like one of the bigger ones that went under the radar is that in 1.1, Electrocharge got changed. Electrocharge is incredibly consistent now because it applies its damage twice. Once when you actually apply the effect, and then again in the dot. So, with that regard, Electrocharge is actually the strongest elemental reaction out of the bunch. It's just delayed, and it can even refresh itself, which is crazy. If you have Tartaglia with Vido, that's when you start to see how powerful Electrocharge is. So, do I think they'll buff it? That's gonna be difficult because, while the element itself is not ideal in the DPS department, it has a lot of support benefits. Like, that's the element that gives you Superconduct, it's the element that gives you Overloaded, it's the element that gives you Electrocharge. Pretty much every single one of these has extremely high potential. So, I don't see them buffing it. Not really, it's very flexible and it has a lot of top-end potential. It's just not a DPS element. They nerfed Ayaka by putting shorts on her. Sorry, that got me. That actually got me. Let's see. This team would work in 1.3. Zhongli DPS with Racer or Xingyan, Barbara as a healer. I would probably recommend in your case to go with Zhongli DPS, Xingyan if you have her. Racer as a DPS is absolutely horrendous, don't try that. I would much rather you make a secondary team with Racer as the main support, or as the main DPS. And Barbara by herself is very, very powerful. If you have this team and you manage to get Fischl, I would probably fit Fischl in there somewhere, just because that way you're pretty much guaranteed to have constant access to all of Fischl's damage, not only with Xingyan, but also with Barbara herself. That team would definitely be very strong. Let's see. Three DPS, yeah. It does seem like a flex, but let's be real. It's a realistic question. In a lot of scenarios, when you get a lot of really good characters, you want to just push them together. It doesn't matter how good they actually are. You just want to see them because they're cool. Let's be honest. All of these characters are cool. They're amazing. I love Keqing. I love the look. I love the design of Zhongli is amazing. The characters are very, very cool. It's just together they create more conflicts than they solve. You could probably just burst through everything because they have so much damage by themselves. But once you start getting into more difficult content, you're really gonna start noticing the lack of synergy. Yeah, Electro as a DPS element is not ideal. As a support element, that's definitely where it shines the best, because Elemental Mastery does scale it quite high. It just lacks like that extra punch when you have it on the DPS department. It's very good for buffs. One of the reasons why Razor is so good, because it allows them to superconduct constantly. And again, Electrocharge is the highest DPS elemental reaction in the game. Not bad by any means. It's just that for characters that have electro conversions, it honestly doesn't feel that good. It feels really bad. I think now that Albedo's a thing, and that Fischl is pretty much free for everybody, that'll feel less jarring, but it's still not like top-end DPS potential. It's usable. It's very usable, and it can probably clear all content once you have it set up properly. It's just not the most efficient. So, it depends on what you want. If she was Pyro, she would be better than Venti. I think I missed the conversation on this one. Oh, if Keqing was Pyro, okay. Oh boy, if Keqing was Pyro, wow, she would be... Oh boy, she would be powerful. She would be extremely powerful. That charge attack with a Vaporize bonus? Yes, please. Alright, looks like I'm finally catching up. So you also play Warframe? Yeah. there's no point in hiding it. I played a lot of Warframe. I played a lot of Warframe. I probably have like 2,000 hours in that game. Not as high as other people, but I'm like what is it? I think the last time I played, I was like Mastery Rank 23. My pride and joy is my Octavia. Not even because Octavia's just busted as hell, but because when I was playing Warframe, I farmed a lot of things that a lot of people didn't want to farm. I farmed Eidolons by myself. I soloed those things because I didn't want to play with others. My internet was also really, really bad, so it was hard for me to play multiplayer. So when I was bored, I would just farm for things and then sell them for platinum, and I would just dump it all into Octavia. Not even the mods, just the character looks. I'm very burned out on Warframe. The developers have they've let me down quite a lot. Quite a lot. Which was why I was very disappointed when Zhongli released. Because I felt like the same feelings that I felt that let me just forget about Warframe in its entirety. I was starting to feel the same thing from MiHoYo with their response, the responses they gave. God, I was heartbroken. Because I really like Genshin. It reminds me a lot of other games that I've played that I've really enjoyed. And I'm enjoying it in much the same way as I enjoyed Warframe, without the horrific grind and absolute bore fest of a couple of the missions. I'm really enjoying Genshin. So I was really, really sad with the entire Zhongli debate, entire Zhongli debacle. It honestly hurt a lot, because Genshin was the game that made me want to try YouTube again. So seeing it go down a path that I have seen before, not only in games like Warframe but also Destiny, it just felt like I was going to go into another trap, and it was definitely very sad, which is one of the reasons why I'm actually very happy. I'm very, very happy with this stream. I woke up, I did all my things, then I looked at the internet and I saw the buffs that were coming up, and I saw something that I wish the developers at that point in time of the other games that I was playing would have done, which is just a simple, look, we're not only listening, we're also going to act upon it. It's one thing to say we're listening to feedback, and it's another one to show that you're actually listening to feedback. And I do think that MiHoYo have shown that they actually listened. And to me, that is very valuable. Then again, I don't think they're perfect. They're gonna make a lot of mistakes, and I already see one with Ayaka. I'm going to call them out on it. Don't expect me to be merciful. But in the same vein, when I do see something worth praising, I will praise it, because those things are deserved. In much the same way as the negative aspect is, so is the positive one. Wonder if you should get back into Warframe. Oh boy. Yeah. Don't. Just don't. Take it from somebody that has tried it. I came back to the game with a friend of mine, the only other friend that I had that played Warframe at the time. We came back because of the new part of Deimos. We were actually excited for Deimos, and man, the cavalcade of mistakes that happened with that DLC. And it was sad because we were actually enjoying it, but the game went downhill so fast. The amount of nerfs that they do almost on a whim, it feels bad. The developers are not in touch with the player base. They want a different game, and it's not the game the player base wants. It's not a game that I want to play, but it's the game that they want to make. So when we have these two conflict clashes, I just don't want to play your game, I'm sorry. And it's sad to have games like that. Same goes with Destiny. I am heartbroken about Destiny. One of my friends recently offered to buy me the game, the DLC, and everything with it for free so I could play with them. I had to refuse. I just couldn't. I don't want my friend to spend his hard-earned money supporting a game company like that that's so willing to ignore their player base and ignore the people that actually care about the game. And at the same time, I just don't want to waste his money because I'm not gonna play it. Even at free, I can't come back to Destiny. And it's really sad because Destiny was one of my favorite games. My first video ever was on Destiny. And that's where I met a lot of my friends. Like a lot of the friends that I talk to now, right now, I would not have met them were it not for Destiny. And a lot of the reason why I have a lot of knowledge is because when we were raiding in Destiny, Vault of Glass, I met a lot of friends, a lot of older friends, and we would have really interesting conversations regarding their work schedules, and a lot of their life experiences, and I learned a lot from people like that. And the community at that point in time was super friendly. I remember that my guild leader, his name was Flash. His name is Flash, I still think. We would grab random people from LFGs that couldn't do Vault of Glass, and we would take them through the entire thing. Him and me together could finish the entire raid by ourselves. We did that once. We had 4 people stay on the first phase, just up, and me and Flash would just kill everything on the entire raid. We would basically duo the raid for people that couldn't do it, so that they could get gear for it. And this wasn't just our clan, there were a lot of clans like that. But the game quickly became toxic, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I don't want the same thing to happen to Genshin. Because I can see that we have a really good community in a lot of places with people that are very nice to each other. And when the entire thing with Zhongli happened, I was very heartbroken. I was wondering if this would just become another Destiny, if this would just become another Warframe, if the community was going to fight the developers, if the developers were going to fight back, if the community was going to start to fight themselves. And I was really scared, but I think today has changed my perspective on that, and it has shown me that there is future. There is a future for Genshin. It's gonna be a rocky one for sure, but I'm not as pessimistic as I once was. But yeah, with that, it does look like I have pretty much caught up with a lot of the comments and a lot of the questions. I did diverge quite a bit from the discussion. I do apologize for that. I digress a lot, if you can't tell. It's one of the reasons why I have to put so much time into my videos so that I can make them as concise as possible. But yeah, with that out of the way, I do think that I have to stop talking. I've been talking non-stop for almost 3 hours. So I do think that I'm probably going to be ending the stream here. I'm probably going to stay in the chat for a little bit if you still have a bit more questions, but I do have to get going at some point. I had a lot of fun with this stream, and I was very, very happy when I saw that MiHoYo made very positive changes that very clearly have inspiration from the community. Again, don't expect me to be merciful. If you make a mistake, I will call you out on it. But if you make a positive change, and one that I do think is a good one, I will praise you for it. Because in the same way that criticism is deserved, so is praise. With playing League of Legends, oh, don't even get me started on MOBAs. I'm not even gonna lie, I was addicted to Smite at one point. I was actually very, very good. To the point where I was constantly being matched with the Xbox champions at the time. But yeah, that game has dropped me quite severely. Maybe the next season might catch me up. I don't think so, if I'm being honest. The developers of that game are... yeah, let's just say their opinions of the design of the game don't really match with a lot of the opinions of the rest of the community, but at the very least they try. They do try. Ajax, the main designer, he has made both the character that I despise the most out of any game in existence, his name is Susanoo, and the character that I love the most out of almost every character, out of almost every character in existence, Amaterasu. Amy, for short. So I'm very conflicted when it comes to that. But yeah, with that out of the way, thank you all for watching. It really does mean a lot. And I'm happy the channel is starting to grow. even if it's slowly, I'm happy that it's starting to grow into a community that's not only very open to discussion in a positive manner, but also a very positive one. That is definitely a type of community that I want to try to foster. So with all the mushy feelings out of the way, yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, consider subscribing if you're not already. Portals out. Oh, so fun thing, my my stream software crashed. I can't stop the screen. Let me force close it.